The chocolate bar you bought this week, the one sitting on your counter right now, very likely passed through the hands of one of just a few companies before it reached you. Not the brand on the wrapper, not the farmers who grew it. Trading houses most people have never heard of, sitting quietly at the center of a market worth over $100 billion a year. In 2024, cocoa prices did something they had not done in nearly half a century. They crossed $10,000 a ton. By early 2024, they hit $12,000. For a brief period, by some accounts, cocoa cost more per ton than copper. The price of a standard chocolate bar in the United States jumped by some estimates roughly 20 to 40% inside 12 months. You felt it at the register, and almost none of that money went to the people who grew the beans. Here is what this video is going to show you. A single cocoa pod, grown on a small farm in West Africa, will travel through a system so concentrated and so quietly powerful that by the time it becomes your chocolate, its original growers have seen, by most estimates, only a few cents of every dollar you paid. We are going to follow that pod from the tree to the trading floor and name the companies that profit most from every step. This is Hungry Empire. To understand the empire, you have to start in the dirt. West Africa grows roughly 60 to 70% of the world's cocoa. Côte d'Ivoire alone accounts for roughly 40 to 45% of global supply, more than any other country by a wide margin. Ghana adds another 15% or so. Together, these two nations are the foundation of the entire chocolate industry. And yet, the farmers who work the land, somewhere between 5 and 6 million smallholders, according to estimates from the International Cocoa Organization, earn on average under $2 a day by most assessments. That figure has barely moved in decades. The cocoa tree is unforgiving. It grows only within 20 degrees of the equator, takes 3 to 5 years to produce its first pods, and is vulnerable to disease, drought, and price swings it cannot influence. A farmer in the Subre region of Côte d'Ivoire harvests pods by hand, ferments the beans in wooden boxes for 5 to 7 days, dries them on raised beds for another week, then bags them in jute sacks. The whole process, from harvest to ready to ship, takes 2 weeks of labor. What happens to those sacks next is where the real story begins. The sacks move by truck, often on unpaved roads, to an export warehouse. Most end up at the port of San Pedro or Abidjan, two of the largest cocoa export hubs in the world. San Pedro alone handles roughly 1 million tons of cocoa beans a year. At the dock, the product enters a different world entirely. It is weighed, graded, and purchased by trading intermediaries who represent the large commodity houses. The farmer's price is set not in Abidjan, but in New York, on the Intercontinental Exchange, the ICE futures market, where cocoa contracts are bought and sold by traders who have often never set foot on a farm. Here is the part most people miss. The strangest thing about cocoa is not that it is concentrated in one region. It is that the processing and trading of that region's output flows through an extraordinarily small number of companies. Cargill, the American agricultural giant headquartered in Minnesota, is among the largest cocoa traders and processors in the world. Barry Callebaut, listed in Switzerland but built on American and European capital, is another. Together, by some industry estimates, these two companies process roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of the world's total cocoa supply before it ever becomes chocolate. A third player, Olam, handles a significant additional share. 3 names, a large share of the world's cocoa. Put yourself in the position of a mid-sized chocolate brand, say a regional confectioner in Germany or a private label supplier to a supermarket chain. You need processed cocoa liquor, cocoa butter, and cocoa powder. You will very likely buy it from one of those three companies. You have few realistic alternatives. The infrastructure, the grinding facilities, the port storage, the logistics networks, the futures hedging desks, took decades and billions of dollars to build. No new entrant is going to replicate it easily. That is not a conspiracy. It is the arithmetic of industrial scale. Cargill entered cocoa in a serious way in the late 1980s, reportedly through acquisitions of existing cocoa operations, and expanded steadily through the 1990s and 2000s. Barry Callebaut was formed in 1996 through the merger of the Belgian chocolate company Callebaut and the French firm Cacao Barry, two names with deep roots in European chocolate, folded into a single industrial processor of enormous scale. By the 2010s, Barry Callebaut was processing, by company disclosures, on the order of 2 million tons of cocoa and chocolate products per year. That is, by some measures, the equivalent of roughly a fifth of global chocolate demand flowing through a single company's factories. This history matters directly to the price you paid in 2024. When the cocoa market went into crisis, driven by the worst El Niño weather event in years, devastating harvests in West Africa, combined with swollen shoot disease destroying tens of thousands of hectares of trees in Ghana, there was little buffer. The supply chain had been built for efficiency, not resilience. Inventories were lean. The trading houses that held physical beans held considerable pricing power because the brands that needed cocoa had few alternatives. Prices did not just rise, they accelerated. What is most surprising about the 2024 price spike is not the weather. Weather shocks happen. What is surprising is how little of the price increase reached the farmers. According to research from organizations tracking cocoa supply chains, the farm gate price, what the farmer actually receives, rose in absolute terms but lagged catastrophically behind the futures market. In Côte d'Ivoire, the government sets a minimum farm gate price each season. For the 2023 to 2024 season, it was set at around $1,000 per ton at the start of the year, while the ICE futures price was heading past $8,000 and climbing toward $12,000. The gap between what the farmer received and what the market was pricing the same beans at became one of the widest in the modern history of the commodity. Of every dollar spent on a standard chocolate bar in a US or European supermarket, the cocoa farmer sees, by most supply chain analyses, only a few cents, typically estimated in the single digits. The trading and processing layer, companies like Cargill and Barry Callebaut, captures a meaningful share of the margin between farm gate and wholesale. The chocolate brand takes its portion. The retailer often keeps a substantial slice of every dollar. The person who spent 3 years waiting for a tree to fruit and 2 weeks harvesting and fermenting beans by hand is at the bottom of that stack. Here is the take that will probably generate some pushback. The structure of this market is not an accident, and many analysts argue that calling it purely a market outcome lets the trading layer off too easily. The concentration of processing infrastructure in the hands of a few companies, combined with government price-setting mechanisms in producing countries that consistently lag the futures market, has produced a system where, according to many supply chain researchers, efficiency gains and price spikes tend to flow upward, and risk tends to flow downward onto the farmers who have the least capacity to absorb it. Is that the market working as intended? Worth asking. What the 2024 crisis also revealed is the fragility hidden inside the system's apparent efficiency. Barry Callebaut, in its fiscal year 2022 to 2023, reported revenues of around 8 billion Swiss francs on roughly 2 million tons of product. Cargill does not break out cocoa separately. It is folded into a broader agricultural trading division that generates tens of billions annually. These are not companies that will be hurt by a single bad harvest year. They hedge on futures markets, hold physical inventory, and manage risk professionally. The farmers in Subré do not hedge. They plant, they wait, and they take whatever price the season delivers. One detail that has stayed with us in researching this story: Barry Callebaut operates a sustainability program called Forever Chocolate, which sets targets for lifting cocoa farmers out of poverty. The irony is not subtle. The company processing, by its own disclosures, on the order of a fifth of the world's cocoa and capturing margin at every step, has a corporate program acknowledging that the people growing the raw material live in poverty. The program may be sincere. The structural economics of the trading layer remain what they are. So where does that leave the chocolate in your hand right now? The 2024 price spike has shifted. Cocoa futures came down significantly from their peak above $12,000 a ton, with recent reports indicating sharp declines from those highs, though prices have stayed volatile. Industry analysts suggest the full effect of higher cocoa costs has continued working through branded chocolate prices, as hedging contracts taken out at lower prices roll off and brands reprice. The bar that cost you around $3 2 years ago tends to cost noticeably more now. That trajectory is not reversing quickly at the retail shelf, even as raw cocoa eases. The question of who actually benefits when cocoa prices spike and who suffers when they fall is not abstract. It is decided by the architecture of a market built over decades, where infrastructure investment created natural concentration, and that concentration creates pricing power at the processing layer that no single harvest year or government policy has managed to break. Will that change? Comment below. Yes or no. The economics are set. The only variable is whether anyone with the power to reshape them decides it is worth the effort. Every ordinary thing in your kitchen connects back to a system like this one. A chain of money, infrastructure, and concentrated power that most people never see. There is another story exactly like this one in the thing you reached for before this video. We are finding them all. Follow so you do not miss the next one. And tell us in the comments, which food empire should we expose next? Your answer shapes what we make. This is Hungry Empire. Title: Two companies process much of the world's cocoa. Farmers get cents. Title: End. Description: A handful of trading giants quietly process a large share of the world's cocoa, while farmers earn only cents per dollar, by most estimates. Discover who actually profits when chocolate prices spike and why farmers see almost none of it. Cargill, Barry Callebaut, Côte d'Ivoire Supply Chain, Cocoa Commodity Trading 2024. In 2024, cocoa hit roughly $12,000 a ton, the highest price in nearly 50 years. Chocolate bar prices jumped sharply. The farmers who grew the beans saw almost none of that windfall. This episode follows a single cocoa pod from a smallholder farm in West Africa to the ICE futures trading screen in New York, and names the companies that sit at the center of a $100 billion industry most consumers never think about. We break down where the money goes, why the 2024 spike happened, and what it means for the price you pay today. Try description: End. Hand intro Tandri treat 5 cents. Intro end. Additional he alti 1 curiosity secret. The companies that touch your chocolate before any brand does LT2 number scale. Cocoa hit $12,000 a ton. Farmers got cents on the dollar. LT3 question: Who actually profits when chocolate prices double? LT4 with series tag: How a few giants dominate the world's cocoa. The Hungry Empire. Additional end. Cover: A dark-skinned farm worker's hands, cracked and weathered, hold a single split-open cocoa pod. Vivid yellow-orange flesh, catching warm light against a near-black background. In the far background, blurred but visible, steel shipping containers stacked at a port quay suggest the industrial scale waiting on the other side of those hands. The hands dominate the left two-thirds of the frame. The right third is kept in deep shadow, clean and dark, for a text overlay. High contrast, cinematic, no fantasy elements. Raw, documentary realism. Cover end.